And hello yet again. Before we get into the lesson today, let me just give you a few updates and share some photographs with you. Chris emailed me today asking, this is on Friday, asking to keep Rachel in prayers. She's in Crosshouse Hospital. She's got some leg problems, not coronavirus, but keep her in your prayers if you would. Also keep George and Joyce's daughter Linda in your prayers as she recovers from yet another hip replacement. And also keep Steve Gehrig from the Clarkston congregation in your prayers. Jack Payton contacted me earlier in the week and let me know that he is going into hospital on Monday for heart surgery on Tuesday, and he asked that he be kept in our prayers. Steve and I worked together for 5 years in my first years here in this country. So keep Steve in prayers as well. Last week, I neglected to wish Irene Leach a happy birthday. That was this past week. This week, in fact, on Sunday, so if you're listening to this on Sunday, it's Adrian and Eve's 40th wedding anniversary. And that is indeed worth celebrating, isn't it? Sadly, we can't sing to them, happy anniversary, and on it goes. But we will be celebrating with them on Zoom on Saturday, the 9th of May. Contact Adrian or Chris if you don't have the details of that and you don't have the link to join us. I think I put at least the time on the front of the bulletin as well. So hopefully you'll be able to see all of that. I thought I'd share a few photos of Arlene's dad before our lesson today. His funeral, of course, was on Monday of this past week. This is a photo I took of Arlene, the Four Generations photo, back in October, just after Joe was born. I think that's my last picture of John Dallas. These other pictures are from his 80th birthday celebrations. You know, this past year or so has been a very difficult time for the Dallas family. This was a photo I made that night of John and his siblings and one of his sisters-in-law. This was taken in March of 2018. Peter, who's to John's right, has his arm around John, died later that year. And of course, Margaret, his younger sister, just to the other side of Peter, died a week or so before John of cancer. And his younger brother, Robert, who's pictured on the right of this picture, on the left of John, Robert and Janet were at the funeral on Monday. His pride and joy were, of course, his daughters, Arlene and Louise and Jackie and Karina. And, of course, second only to them were his grandchildren. And here's some of his grandchildren with some of their spouses. And, of course, not to leave out these great guys here, his sons-in-law. He had 4 daughters, so he got 4 sons-in-law. So there's John and me, who's John as well. And, of course, John Dallas. And then, of course, Peter and Paul. When the funeral procession left Arlene's dad's house with his 4 daughters in the car, it was absolutely amazing, all the people who'd come out to pay their respects. These photos here are photos from a video that Arlene made. Ian was standing there just outside, just across from his house. And as they turned to go down Burns Park, there were his neighbors standing there, applauding, giving their respects for John Dallas. Then as they turned the corner into Maxwelton Avenue, the road was lined both sides with people standing and applauding. As you can see, many of them have hearts there, but applauding John Dallas, a man that they knew and that they loved. In fact, amongst those was Allie McCoist, because he'd come out to pay his respects as well. This is actually a photo that a local photographer who had known John came out, who was standing there as well, made that day. Cindy Lou Ramsey Photography is her company, but she made this photo and posted it with an amazing tribute to John on Facebook, and you can read it on Arlene's Facebook page. I think Gina also has it on her Facebook page. So thank you for allowing me to share those memories of Arlene's dad with you. In our lesson today, we're going to be looking at pigs, and we're going to be looking at people. And we're going to be at the last part of Luke, chapter 8, and picking up from where we left off last week. Last week we were in Luke chapter 8, and we had the storm as he went across Galilee. And it seems like most of the time in chapter 8, he spends a number of months there teaching in the Galilee area. This particular incident we're going to look at, if in my reckoning, which may not be precise, but at least it's within a few months, would have taken place in December of AD 28. So you take that with a small grain of salt, but it's at least close to the right time period. We'll begin by reading Luke chapter 8, beginning at verse 26. They sailed to the region of the Gerasenes, which is across the lake from Galilee. When Jesus stepped ashore, he was met by a demon-possessed man from the town. For a long time, this man had not worn clothes or lived in a house, but had lived in the tombs. When he saw Jesus, he cried out and fell at his feet, shouting at the top of his voice, "What do you want with me, Jesus, Son of the Most High God? I beg you, don't torture me." For Jesus had commanded the impure spirit to come out of the man. Many times it had seized him, and though he was chained hand and foot and kept under guard, he had broken his chains and had been driven by the demon into solitary places. Just remind us of where we are as well. We used this map last week of the Sea of Galilee. And he centered a lot of his work in Capernaum. Of course, he's in this whole, probably this upper region of Galilee during chapter 8. But they set out and sailed from Capernaum across the Sea of Galilee to about that area there. And of course, they had that storm that Jesus calmed. This area, looking at it from the Sea of Galilee, it's the area roughly in the middle of this photo where the hill comes down towards the water. This picture here I made is a bit clearer. I made this almost 2 years earlier, and it would seem to be the area roughly in the center of the photo, providing I have my bearings right. They arrived across the lake, and he was met by a demon-possessed man. Now, I'm assuming that this is now morning. I'm assuming they sailed through the night, and they arrived there the following morning. And this photo is reflecting a morning as well. And this man here, they arrived in the area of the Gerasenes. Now, depending on the translation that you're using, depending on which account of Jesus' life you're reading, you might get one of 2 or 3 different names. Most of the modern translations have the land of the Gerasenes, the region of the Gerasenes. The King James Version family uses Gadarenes. A few translations, maybe a few of the gospel accounts, uses Gergesenes. And the reason there's a difference is because these are all 3 Gerasa, Gadara, and Gergesa are all towns in this region, and this where the name of the region comes from. The Greek in Luke is Gerasenes, so we're going to go with that in this particular lesson. But he's a demon-possessed man, and that may be a bit of an understatement, as we're going to see as we get on into this account. By the way, there are actually 2 men who met them. Luke and Mark only record the one that we're going to be looking at in our lesson today, but Matthew records that there were 2. Now, this is not a contradiction. Matthew is simply giving a more full description, while Mark and Luke are concentrating on the one who is pivotal to this particular incident. But this man, he's demon-possessed. He's not doing well at all. The text tells us that he didn't wear clothes, and he had been chained. Now, our photo here has been sanitized just a bit, and thank goodness for that. But in reality, he was not wearing clothes at all. And he didn't live in a house, but he was living in solitary places. He was living in the tombs. In fact, the text tells us that people in that area had tried to control the man, but they had been unsuccessful. These men, this man here and the other man who was with him, were so ferocious that they prevented anyone from passing through this area. Maybe that's why Jesus decided to come here. But when he saw Jesus, he knew who he was. Notice, he just immediately calls out, "Jesus, Son of the Most High God." Of course, that may be the demons speaking through the man. And the demons knew exactly who Jesus was. But the man begs Jesus not to torture him. The reaction of the demon possessing the man when Jesus commanded the impure spirit, they begged him because he commanded them to come out of the man. So this gives us maybe a bit of a hint as to what was going to happen. Because if Jesus had commanded it, you know it's going to be done. And he's already mentioned here in verse 28, mentioned that he's commanded the impure spirit to come out of the man. Now, the area that this takes place has been somewhat identified, and I think it's probably pretty accurate, at least close to it within that particular region. Today, this area is called Kersey. You can see the name Gerasa, Gerasene area. So Kersey, as the sign tells us, has been identified as Gerasa. The sign, notice what the sign says, where Jesus performed the miracle of the swine. That's an interesting way of putting it. I don't think I would have called it that. But through the centuries, as the sign tells us, they have built churches and monasteries there to commemorate what happened. But it's in this general area, very well could be in this precise location that this takes place. This is the area here. As you can see, a tomb there carved into the side of the hill. And so there are several tombs up in this particular area. So this very well could be the precise area that all of this has taken place. It would seem that if you're able to walk up the hillside there, we didn't have time to do that when we were visiting, but they've built a number of things up there as well. But you can see, again, you can see the tombs there. And here's another view of the area as well. So that this seems to be the area, the hills, that's that chain of hills on the east side of the Sea of Galilee that starts there. Sea of Galilee is over to your right, just behind those trees there. This is a view of a picture of the church that they built there. It's the ruins of the church, and it must have been quite elaborate when it was in existence. But this seems to be the area where all of this is taking place. Continuing in the text, in verse 30, Jesus asked him, "What is your name?" "Legion," he replied, because many demons had gone into him. They begged Jesus repeatedly not to order them to go into the abyss. A large herd of pigs was feeding there on the hillside. The demons begged Jesus to let them go into the pigs, and he gave them permission. When the demons came out of the man, they went to the pigs, and the herd rushed down the steep bank into the lake and was drowned. So, Jesus asked the man, and I think it's a logical question to ask, "What's your name?" Of course, the answer is interesting, isn't it? Legion. And the explanation, because many demons had entered into him. By the way, a Roman legion had, from what I understand, between 4,000 and 6,000 soldiers. So the idea seems to be that there were a whole lot of demons who had taken up residence in this man. Many, many demons were in him. Now notice, these demons knew they're going to be cast out, but they didn't want to be sent back to the abyss. Now the abyss is normal and proper home of demons. It's mentioned 9 times in the New Testament as the home of demons. They don't want to be sent back there. Apparently, it's not very nice there. J.W. McGarvey, back 100 or 140 years ago or so, said this. He said, how these demons escaped from the abyss is one of the unsolved mysteries of the spirit world. I liked that. But there were a lot of demons, weren't there, that would escape from the abyss during the time Jesus was on the earth. Perhaps because he was here, there was an increase of demonic activity there. Anyway, they asked, let us go into this herd of pigs. And Mark in his text tells us that there were around 2,000 pigs in this herd. So it was quite a large herd of pigs. And Jesus permitted it. And the pigs, once they were in, they went crazy and they rushed down the hillside and they drowned. I tried to photograph this to show you from the hillside down to the Sea of Galilee, but the time I took this picture, the sun was very bright. And so you can't actually see the sea in the photo, but that is the Sea of Galilee just there on the right-hand side of this photo behind these shrubs there that are on the seashore. So if they're somewhere on this hillside here, it was not very far to run to go straight into the sea. To finish up this incident, verse 34. When those tending the pigs saw what had happened, they ran off and reported this in the town and countryside. The people went out to see what had happened. When they came to Jesus, they found the man from whom the demons had gone out, sitting at Jesus' feet, dressed and in his right mind. They were afraid. Those who had seen it told the people how the demon-possessed man had been cured. Then all of the people of the region of the Gerasenes asked Jesus to leave them because they were overcome with fear. So he got into the boat and left. The man from whom the demons had gone out begged to go with him. But Jesus sent him away, saying, return home and tell how much God has done for you. So the man went away and told all over the town how much Jesus had done for him. So what happened was reported to those in the area by the pig keepers. They went and told everybody what Jesus had done and that their pigs were gone. A group came to see Jesus, and they saw the former demon-possessed man dressed and cured. And this man here is standing at this point when they pull up in our photographs here. The photo before this, which I didn't use, he was sitting. So I left that photo out. But yeah, they saw what was there. And it says that they were afraid they were overcome with fear. Now, they were afraid of the man when he was demon-possessed. But seeing him, of course, the man with him, cured, really seems to have scared the people. It would seem that they were more fearful of Jesus than they were of the man. Because here was somebody who had the power to restore this man, and of course Matthew records his companion, to their right minds. And that scared them even worse than the men who'd been demon-possessed scared them. So they asked Jesus to leave, to go back to where he came from, leave their area. Jesus sent the man home to tell others what God had done for him. Interesting that the man wanted to go with Jesus, to become one of his followers. But Jesus sent him home to tell other people about what Jesus had done. By the way, that's different from other instances of people who were healed. If you remember, Jesus sometimes told them not to tell anyone. So why the difference here? Well, possibly Jesus wanted him to tell others to help dispel the fear that people had of him. And maybe also to emphasize that Jesus was a man of mercy. It would, though, prove beyond a doubt that the man had been cured if he went back and told them what Jesus had done. A question that many people ask about this particular incident is why Jesus allowed the demons to enter the pigs, resulting in their death. Because the pigs died, and of course the man who owned the pigs lost his livelihood, and those who took care of the pigs lost their livelihood. And so the question has come up, why did Jesus do that? Why ruin a good herd of pigs? Because one thing you might want to keep in mind is the pigs were unclean under the Mosaic law. But I'm not sure if that comes into play here or not. But one thing I think we can say about that is that people are more important than pigs. And consistently, Jesus places a larger emphasis on people than he does on animals or things. This incident, of course, shows Jesus' mercy, even to the demons. Yes, mercy to the demon-possessed men. They're restored to their right minds, but also even to the demons, giving them a chance to continue to live in a body for a while, albeit a pig. And Jesus permitted it. One thing I think we also need to remember is it wasn't Jesus who killed the pigs. It was the demons. Jesus didn't kill the pigs. By the way, that's why I think calling this the miracle of the pigs is not really the right way to look at it. It's the miracle of the demon-possessed men. By the way, this is a bit like those who blame God for disasters, isn't it? Disaster comes along, and even though people normally won't even say they believe in God, suddenly they blame God for it. By the way, I've even seen people blame the current coronavirus epidemic on God. God's judgment on people. I'm not so sure that's what's going on here. Although it is interesting that it's cleanliness that is really needed here. And it was cleanliness, or lack of cleanliness, that seems to have gotten this virus started, if the suppositions are correct. What do we learn from this particular incident? What does this tell us about Jesus? Well, one thing I think it tells us that he cares about people. He went in to an area to deal with some men that society had rejected. They were scared of them. In fact, they had rejected these men because they were dangerous. But Jesus still went there, didn't he? Interesting, sometimes we're fearful of going into certain situations. I've been told by well-meaning Christians at times, don't go to this group of people because we don't know what they're like. But maybe that's why we do need to go to them. I always had the idea that we need to go to whoever we can go to tell about Jesus. We also see that Jesus is characterized in all situations by mercy. Mercy for the men to restore them to their right minds. They needed that. Even mercy to the demons by allowing them to go into the pigs. What was Jesus teaching through all of this? I think he's teaching one thing we've seen through almost every miracle that he's done. He's teaching that he is the Messiah, that he is the Son of God. He has power over demons. This means, by the way, he also has power over the devil as well. We saw that several months ago in our lessons when we looked at the temptations that the devil presented to Jesus. But I think that tells us if Jesus has that kind of power, he's the one that we need to be serving as well. I think there's one more lesson that I want to bring out, one more lesson that we can learn from this incident, and it's there in that last sentence of the reading that we just did. So the men went away and told all over the town how much Jesus had done for him. Isn't that what we need to be doing? We need to be telling others, just like this man did, about Jesus, about who he is, about what he did, about his death for our forgiveness, about the life we now live in him. We need to tell people how much Jesus has done for us. We have another week ahead of us. The lockdown continues, and it looks to continue for at least a few more weeks in the current form that it's in. This is the 7th Sunday that we've been, or this is the 6th Sunday that we haven't been able to meet together. The 7th Sunday for those who needed to be shielded, where they haven't been able to meet with us when we met that one Sunday with social distancing. But throughout the week, same thing I tell you every week. Spend time every day with God. And for once, we have the time to do that. Continue to pray. Continue to pray. Prayer is should be such a big part of our lives. And also continue to spend time in God's Word. And throughout this week, at some point, read Luke chapter 9, because we'll take a lesson at least from Luke chapter 9 over the next week or so. If you have the time, if you have the technology, let me remind you of the online lessons and studies that are available. The British Bible School has a Sunday lesson at 11 a.m. on YouTube, and you can find that on their British Bible School, a link to that on their British Bible School webpage, also on the British Bible School YouTube channel, of course. Of course, we have Zoom classes through the week. Schedule can be found on the BBS website. I teach Ecclesiastes on Tuesday evenings. I know I taught it for East Kilbride a few years ago. I'm able to do it in a little more depth than I did there on the classes that we're doing for the British Bible School just now. But if you've missed the classes up to this point, you can, or if you don't have Zoom, you can find the recordings of the classes on the BBS YouTube channel. And so you can, again, there's a link to that on the BBS website. By the way, before I finish, it is May now. Can you believe it? April's finished. We spent a whole month in lockdown, plus, of course, the end of March. But each beginning of every month, Christian Audio gives away a free audiobook. And the audiobook for this month is a book entitled Don't Give Up. It's by Kyle Idleman. I've not heard it yet, but it does look good. And I thought the title Don't Give Up might be especially good for this time of pandemic that we're going through. You can download it at christianaudio.com. Look for the free audiobook of the month link on that one, and you can download that. But that may prove to be a very, very good listen. So until next week, I hope you have a good week. Stay safe. And as the government keeps telling us, continue washing your hands. When you have to be out, continue practicing social distancing, but only go out for the reasons that we need to go out for. Have a good week.